And welcome to How to Write a Book Part 12. For those of you just joining for the first time, this is a series I made to help beginning indie authors get started with their career. It is a very basic overview, just to help give you ideas and get you started, but you might have to still do some of your own research before publishing. For those of you who don't know who I am, my name is Hope E. Davis. I am the published author of 7 books with an 8th one that's written and editing right now and will be published in August. I've also got another one on the way. I write in both thriller and romantasy, and I've been in indie publishing since 2018, which is why I decided to share my knowledge. I do all of this for free, just because I'm passionate about helping other indie authors. This is part 12. We're going to be talking about marketing. By this point, you should have written a book and uploaded it to various publishing platforms, but people aren't just going to come and buy your book. The hardest part, I think, about being an indie author is learning how to market yourself. If you haven't already, you should have social media on all platforms. I do mean all platforms. Even if you don't plan to post regularly on all platforms, you need to go and claim your username on all platforms. This means Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, Blue Sky, Twitter, YouTube, every platform you can think of, just go claim your username so no one else can. After that, you can decide what platforms to focus on. I generally recommend looking at your audience and then choosing a platform. If your audience is people 40 and above, Facebook is going to be your best bet. If yours are people between 20 and 40, I think Instagram is pretty good for that. And if yours are individuals under 30, then probably stick to TikTok. This is just based on the age ranges that are reported as using those platforms. So, of course, this will vary a little bit. Personally, I focus really heavily on Instagram and TikTok. I do a little bit here on YouTube, but not near as much as I do in those other places. I do have a Facebook account, but it's mostly family and friends who have followed along with my writing journey. Not that that's bad, it's just if you want to become a successful indie author, you have to go beyond your family friends. And then the number one way I recommend to get exposure as an indie author is with your debut. Get as many ARC readers as you can. Again, ARC stands for Advanced Reader Copies, and these are people who are going to read and review your book before publication. You have a few options for sending these out. I personally use BookFunnel, but there's also BookSprout, Book Sirens, and probably a couple others that will allow you to send books to people before publication for the purposes of reviewing. Book Sirens, I think, is the cheapest. It's a $10 listing fee, and then $2 to each person they find for you, and then you can find your own as well. Book Funnel is like 25 a month for the plan I have, and I think Book Sprout is 10 to 12 per month. There is also um, there's a couple bigger ones. There's a really famous one that's escaping me right now, but it's very expensive. It's $600 for 6 months, and I've heard the reviewers there are very picky, so it's generally better to skip them until you have a little bit of traction, maybe on your third or fourth book. Now, these platforms can help you find ARC readers, but often you do need a little boost in your own. I recommend using Facebook groups for ARC readers, looking on platforms like Instagram, Threads, and TikTok, and just post with a tag like ARC readers wanted or ARC readers needed and get people to read your book. One thing about BookFunnel, which is why I've switched to them from using Book Sirens, is they do watermark your copies in case people do pirate your work during the ARC phase. If you haven't copyrighted your work yet, I do recommend doing that. In the US, the copyright filing costs $65, but you can do it at home with digital files. And I think this is the best way to protect your work during the ARC phase because if someone does post it online, you can send takedown notices. Now, I will talk more about to take down notices and all the piracy stuff later on. But for this one, just focus on getting your book out to people, making sure they read and review, and hopefully some of them give you a follow on social media platforms to watch for your next books. Um, ARC readers is usually pretty low cost and it's a good way to get new readers, but of course you can only do this prior to release. I mean, some authors do it a little until a little bit after release, but in general you can't be doing ARC readers all year long. So this brings us into ads. Personally, I have found that Facebook and Instagram ads perform the best for me, but there are many options. BookBub is a good one. They're just expensive, but I've gotten some good response for them when I can afford one. Written Word Media is really good. I've had a couple successful campaigns with them. I haven't really figured out Amazon marketing yet, but I did get some more page reads on KU when I was using them, but I found it wasn't worth the cost. But this is probably a user error because I didn't really know how to use Amazon ads. There are some courses which I do plan to take one in the future, and I would recommend taking one of those before you dump a bunch of money into ads. There was also TikTok ads. They didn't work for me, but I think it's also just because my audience maybe isn't quite the TikTok audience. That being said, you'll want to do some ads after the ARC phase. I don't really know any books that have been successful without ads. The question is how much. You can run as little as $5 in ads a month up to thousands of dollars. Of course, some really successful authors do thousands, but if you're anything like me, you don't have thousands of dollars for ads. So I generally plan to spend $100 per month on ads, and then some months I skip in order to purchase a more expensive ad, like a BookBub ad, the next month. Um, it's always worth joining author groups to find out which ads work for your genre, and I recommend stalking these groups as much as possible in the early days until you kind of figure out a rhythm. You might fail a bit at first. It takes a while to find your footing. For me, it took 4 years, so don't be embarrassed. It is a learning process, and all other indie authors are there with you. So if you have any questions about anything I spoke about in this video, please let me know in the comments. Otherwise, I will continue next time with more about like author maintenance, such as the piracy concerns and how to keep an interested readership. Hope this helps.